good afternoon. We are ready to start with the first slide is related to the introduction from the chair. And I will start saying something that is quite obvious for the people very much involved in this field, that we have a plan. We have in front of us the green energy transition, and we have already some important pathway and important keywords that we remember. Of course, we are still in the middle of a pandemic, so recovery is one of the important keywords. Recovery will be discussed in a moment. We have an important aspect related to decarbonization. You know, policymakers took important decision and they get ambitious target for 2030 and 2050. Then we will talk about electrification, so electrification of the end use to make them more efficient, to be linked to the energy system. Then we will have a decentralization. We are experiencing already what is called distributed generation, a lot of million of generator units that are connected to the system. And then system integration, that is maybe the new baby, the possibility to have a system of system taking advantage from the system interacting to each other, leveraging synergy. And then digitalization is not actually a keyword, it's not actually a technology, it's more like an enabler for the transition we have in front of us. So a few words about the recovery. We are still seeing that the data from IEA referring to 2020, you see a reduction of emission because that is strongly related to reduction of consumed energy around the world due to the lockdown and other productivity that has been lost during 2020. So we have now a unique opportunity to build back better the system, taking advantage to new technology, not to lock in to the past fossil fuel-based technologies. Decarbonization, as I said, is also imposed by our policymakers that took a very ambitious goal, and you know, European Union and many countries already have a target for reaching a fully decarbonized system, net zero by 2050. And what is important to say that to reach such an ambitious goal, this decade is really critical. So we have to advance as much as possible in this decade if you really want to reach the final goal by 2050. Then electrification. You know, there is a strong pushing for electrified end use that is good when we talk about electrifying the transport sector, when we talk about heating and cooling in building and many other opportunities, also to become more efficient and to have a system that is fully connected. I already mentioned the distributed generation. I will move on with system integration. So the opportunity we will have on stage, the possibility to discuss about any similarity and similar approach or guideline we can derive from the electricity network, from the gas network, and other networks as well. And then digitalization. So you know that the cost of digital devices has been reduced. You have a possibility to have a IoT sensor, low cost, embedded in the system, so higher observability, the possibility to increase the control of your system. This is, of course, an added value that we have to use in this energy transition. In these slides, you see it's very crowded. You have a lot of possible technologies. Some of them will be maybe the object of a discussion today, which of them need to be investing on. And there are many, and just several of them can provide a solution, but some of them are still in the R&I stage and need to be reaching a maturity level that allow them to be rolled out in the system. These are the technology that maybe you are more familiar with, very fancy names like blockchain, IoT, or artificial intelligence. These are technology that already can have a possibility to be used in our daily life. So this is why we look at the investment that can be made today in order to make the system modernized and fully decarbonized. It is important to say that there are several international organizations and countries and the European Union that develop a pathway from here to the full decarbonization of our system and our economy. And in those, you have a vision, you have a roadmap. Even in these days, we just released a roadmap from Mission Innovation that took into account and defined the top 100 innovation priorities that need to be tackled in order to really allow power system to be run with up to 100% 20% VRE, variable renewable energy sources. Some of the solution is now a reach already. Some of them need to be researched further. It's important to say that it's not only about technology, it's also about all the other things that make technology being used and possibly being used. So business model, regulatory framework, market design are also in our reach and need to be modified in order to allow the solution to be fully implemented. This is just a graph that I borrowed from IEA for the net zero emission scenario. In this case, you see the enormous investment that are foreseen for the electricity network. The investment need to be triple in this decade in order to take into account for additional demand that need to be accommodate, the renewable integration, and also refurbishment of the grid to be suitable for the challenges that are in front of us. So here just a list, but we hear more from the panelists, which are the way where investment can be used for the electrification, for capacity expansion, for increasing the flexibility of a system, and to allow the really demand response from in our system. And it's always clear that this evolution cannot go in one direction without involving the final customer, the citizen, the people that can really change the situation by changing their behavior. So other major investments to modernize the grid are listed in here, and they include, of course, discussion which are the similarity, which could be a common approach that could be suitable to be applied both for electricity system and for the gas system, which are the main challenges we have in front of us. Can we share best practices? Can we do something that is similar in both in order to advance and accelerate those advancing? So in this case, also digitalization is a key for the gas system. This is my guess, I think so. You need to control, you need to monitor, you need to evaluate the consumption, so this can be done now more effectively by digital devices. So I finish my short introduction. I'm ready to introduce the speakers, and so as I said, we have 7. That is not easy to manage a panel so large. I hope I will be able to do that. 7 distinguished panelists from different sectors. I will start introducing the first one. So Viviana Vito, that I have the pleasure to know ready for other activity. She's head of market strategy and regulatory analysis from Global Infrastructure and Network at Enel. Thank you for being with us and bringing your expertise.
Thank you, Luciano, for the invitation.
Our pleasure. Then we have Catherine Leboul-Proust, Chief Strategy Officer from GRDF from France. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for your invitation.
Then we have Pier Lorenzo Dell'Orco, Chief Executive Officer from Italgas Reti. Thank you for being with us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you.
So gas is very well represented from France and from Italy. Let's see if we can compare solutions. I think you are already working together in some case. Okay, let's move on with Dominika Stukus, Director Asset Management from DTEC Grids Ukraine. Thank you for being with us and for jumping in the panel. The last moment, I know you were just covering something that has been very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And then Christian Buchel from EDSO, the chairman of EDSO, so bringing the view of an important DSO in Europe that is very much appreciated. Thank you for being with us. And then Philippe Vier, Group Vice President, Energy and Utility from Capgemini, fully involved in the energy transition with some expertise and willingness to contribute to the discussion, I guess.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And then, last but not least, I think this is the usual way to say, is Nicolas Piao, co-founder and managing partner from Tilt Capital Partners. Thank you. I know you are familiar also with the Italian situation, so bring your expertise in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, let's start with some initial questions. So let's start with Enel. Enel is a very advanced utility, always prone to digitalization, to innovation. So we would like to know from you which are the main pillars on which you are building your business plan for, in terms of network investment, which are the key investment you have foreseen for the next few years. So the floor is yours. Do you have your mic? Okay. Viviana?
Yes, thanks, Luciano. I think that's the first signal that grids is essential and crucial to the transition is given by the company, because company like us are increasing the portion and the allocation to grid investment more and more in the last years. We just released a few days ago in our capital market days, and we increase significantly the amount of investment dedicated to the network, because we believe that this is essential to renovate and also to bring the network to a level of digitalization and to capability to be central and to have the correct role for leading also the transition. But also the surrounding stakeholders are aware of that. I think it's the first COP where network has been also mentioned. In COP25 there was no mention at all. Network was not even in any, while the recent COP in Glasgow demonstrated that in several events the grid has been central, and there is an understanding from consultants, outlook, performer, and how this is crucial. In particular, we consider that a part of the economy of scale and investment that we dedicate to network is also important how you lead this transition. So we consider three essential pillars in doing that. The first is the resilience, because we are aware that the change in the weather atmospheric condition to the climate change is increasing the events more and more. So the resilience need to face that condition, and on the other side also need to face the disruption in the market behavior, because market will completely be different on the network, and in particular on distribution network. On the other side, you need to be participatory. This means that the role of network as an orchestrator has to put together different type of player, and also different behavior from this player. We absolutely don't know what will happen for the behavior on another sector, that is the mobility, that now will be on the network of distribution. And nobody knows precisely how this consumption will be actively involved and engaged together with the network. So it's important also to have this capability, this type of participation. And the third point, that is not third, but is essential, is leading all the modality in which you do investments, is the sustainable part. The amount of and the volume that all the network operators we bring on the table will imply we need to do that in a sustainable way. This means that entire value chain of investments should be think from the very beginning in a circular modality, and this is an incredible possibility to scale up in terms of volume. So just to give an example, and then I stop, the smart meter. Smart meter could be in a classical way, or you can do it using the chassis with plastic reuse and plastic recycle. And the number and volume that is in place and the capability to do all together, not just one DSO, can create really a benefit for the entire community.
Thank you very much, Viviana. I got already several important concepts from you. The grid is becoming more and more important for integrated renewable, but be at the center of the overall system, participatory to involve all important actors, the opportunity by electromobility or electrification of transport. All of these are important from your eyes. Let's see then, going through the other panelists, if this concept will be repeated and you find some agreement about this important aspect. Thank you. Let's move to gas, from electricity to gas, from Italy to France. Which are the main investments that you believe are needed in the gas network in order to take this important chance to develop renewable gases? And which are the important factors that you saw in the past that were very successful and could repeat in the future? Please.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm very pleased to share with you a French story, the story of the development of renewable gas. We experienced in France these last years a huge development, a strong dynamic in renewable gas. Production doubles every year. We connect to the grid 2 new biomethane plants per week, and we think we are going to reach quite soon a national objective we had in France, which is to reach 10% of gas consumption covered by renewable gas by 2030. So it's it's a very reachable objective. So what's our return of experience in terms of investments? So we have two main learnings, which are also two good news. The first main learning is that the switch from fossil gas to 100% renewable gases do not require huge investments in distribution assets. Why? Because these gases can be injected directly into the grid without any major adaptation. It's true today for biomethane, which is the first generation of renewable gases, but it will be true tomorrow for synthetic methane, which is quite promising. And in France, we assess that the average cost is about from 3 to 4 euros per megawatt hour max. For the integration into the grid, and these investments cover mainly meshing and reverse flow. So a low cost, and it's a low cost combined with a high impact on decarbonation, because biomethane, for instance, reduces carbon emission by 10. So it's a no-regret solution today. The second main learning is that there's no problem of storage, because the new renewable gas benefits from all the huge assets of the existing gas grids. So we don't have to invest in storage facilities, and they benefit also from the huge capacity of existing gas grids of delivering important power on short period of time. So that's a very key point. And especially in France, because we have we have to tackle the famous problem of winter peak demand, which is in heating during winter time. So what are the main success? What are the main key points of success? The first one is a political support from local authority. In France, the distribution network belongs to local authority. They have invested in the networks. They are the owner, and they are eager to deliver and to make the value of gas networks live on a long-term path. And they are also very interested in keeping a very diversified portfolio for their energy mix. They just do not want to be dependent on just one energy, but just to have a diverse portfolio of solutions for their mix. The second political support came from our government, because we had this objective in the law of 10% of renewable gas by 2030, and it was combined with a setup quite large of regulations that make the development of biomethane easier and give visibility to producer. The second key success factor was very substantial positive externalities, and what is very interesting in regarding this French experience is that external positive externalities have been assessed by studies and have been recognized by the Parliament, by our French authority of regulation, and they are assessed up to 50 euros, up to 70 euros, in between 50 and 70 euros per megawatt water. And the Parliament, the French Parliament, asks the government to consider the value added brought by renewable gases in the support tariff system. So that's a very good point. It was very incentive. Right. And the third key success factor is a real strong commitment of a large diversified actors in between farmers, waste treatment plants, NGOs, environmental association, local authority, gas grid operators. We are all different. We have different interests, but a common goal, the development of biomethane, and that make it work quite quickly. So.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing with us these very positive messages.
Yeah.
So the situation seems quite okay. Not big or huge investment are needed to transform your system and move into a more sustainable, not fossil fuel dependent. So this is the situation in France. And let's move to a major player in Italy in the same sector. So let's see if you agree, if you see a similar bright future for the gas adaptation. By the way, I know your company is making a strong effort in digitalizing the network, and I think this is good to allow the green transformation. Can you explain why these investments are needed and for which purpose and for which final goal? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Luciano, for this question. Well, I believe that gas DSO will face a great opportunity in the next few years, maybe the greatest opportunity ever in the last century. That is to give a concrete contribution to the energy transition through leveraging what is really an asset, a strategic asset of Italy, for example, but Europe as a whole, the gas network. As Catherine said, we have already examples on the table where the gas network can be leveraged in order to accomplish a reduction in carbon intensity, for example, through renewable gases. This will be a big challenge for the existing gas distribution operators, and either we will be in position of catching this opportunity, or I think we will be swept away. So of course, as Italgas, we are working to catch this opportunity. And how? By repurposing our network, our entire network, in order to make it adequate, fit for receiving, blending, and distributing not only one type of gas, but several types of gases. Natural gas combined with renewable gases like biomethane today, but also green hydrogen tomorrow, or synthetic gas. So this is really a big challenge because, first of all, gas distributors have to change their mindset and their business model maybe. We will have to move from a pretty straightforward linear business to a circular one. A linear business where you have only one type of gas, natural gas. You perfectly know the characteristics of this gas, that you have only basically one counterpart, the TSO, which delivers this gas in certain known points and injects this gas and measures the gas and so on. And then you manage your network in order to dispatch this gas from the delivery point, the city gates, for example, down to the meters. Well, the future will be completely different. We will have various types of gases. We will not know a priori the quality of these gases, and the quality can change. Let's think about a biomethane plant or an hydrogen plant. We will have a lot of counterparts to manage, to cope with, and numerous points of injections all around the network. We'll have to blend all these gases and dispatch these gases down to the end users. So we will become active player, active manager of the network. We must be in position of monitoring on real time what is happening in our network, the quality of the gas, the quantity of the gas, the blending, and so on. And we can do that only through a full digitization. That is why we're investing a lot in this work stream. So our target as Italgas is to become the first fully digitized gas DSO worldwide, I would say. We're working hard to do so and to become the first one by next year, not by the next decade. We're digitizing the entire, I would say, supply chain of the gas distribution, starting from the delivery points of our TSO down to the smart meter. As of today, we are the largest operator of gas smart meter in the world, for example. And so digitizing the assets is really what can let the gas DSO survive, in my view. But it is not sufficient. because digitizing the asset is only the foundation where you have to build your future. Think about data, for example. As of today, Italgas is catching a huge amount of data from the field. We own and operate 7.5 million smart meters transmitting data. So we have to develop new capabilities in order to make the right use of this data. We are working hard, for example, to develop algorithms in predictive maintenance. Today, we are in position of forecasting faults on our smart meter fleet and go and replace the smart meter before it actually faults. And we have to do so also in all along the networks. For example, adopting new technology for fighting fugitive emissions, which is our pain points as a sector. So if we want to contribute concretely for the energy transition, we must reduce dramatically fugitive emissions. So we have to adopt breakthrough technology to do that. We have to speed up the repairing time. And again, we have to put into place a predictive maintenance plan which is based on data. So something which is completely a breakthrough innovation for our very traditional sector, and which will revolutionize, my view, and is already revolutionizing how things are done in the gas distribution. So that's why we're investing a lot in that direction.
Thank you very much for your comment. I have many questions that comes to me, and I will later on ask you maybe some reaction about such an important topic as hydrogen, green hydrogen, how it will be managed, and maybe how you feel in a sector that was very traditional for many years. Everything is changing now. And another maybe will be about how can gain experience or best practice from the electricity sector on smart meter to be used, not to make the same little mistake has been made before, but take advantage of that experience to go faster. So this could be some important. Okay, let's move to Ukraine with a short trip to there. Thank you very much for being with us. And I would like to ask you, in your view, which are the most important and relevant rules and requirements that are important when you make a grid investment in your case. In that case, if there are any political or financial way to help distribution system operator at large to afford this investment to be always with a modernized system. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I will start with a short introduction on what DTEC Grids is doing. So basically, DTEC Grids is a group of distribution system operators located in Ukraine. We operate across 5 regions in Ukraine. And indeed, we are meeting a lot of challenges through energy transition. So in many parts of Europe, what is DSO and what is TSO is defined differently, right? So in Ukraine, we operate grids up to 150 kV, so relatively high voltage. And this enables us actually to connect relatively large utility scale renewable projects into our grids. So this is one part, and we have so far integrated around 2 gigawatts into our grids, which we operate in Ukraine. The second part is the low voltage, so renewables that we see on the low voltage grid, and these are prosumers. And what we have observed so far since 2017, since the new prosumer scheme has been introduced in Ukraine, the market has simply exploded. So we have a lot of small installations operating on our grids. And this, of course, all of this needs to be somehow integrated and financed. So I think the key parts that people tend to forget is basically, there is one part which relates to generation, and that part is relatively secured in terms of financing, right? But there is another part which relates to grids and new substantial investments that need to come to grids. So by our estimates, before 2030, for DSOs in Ukraine, in order to meet the transition targets, we would need investments of more than 12 billion euros. this relates not only into traditional so-called investments, but also the digital and automation part. And there we need two things. One thing is the stability of regulation, because without stability of regulation, there is no basically discussion about financing or anything beyond that. And the second part is the basically education of the market as well as of the regulator on the benefits that digitalization and automation can bring. So still in many parts of Europe, I'm not talking only about Ukraine, but in many parts of Europe, the regulators tend to stick to the older ways of looking at investments. And then coming back to the last part, so basically, what do we need to be able to finance that? There are many beautiful schemes around the world on green financing, etc. But basically, with also people tend to forget that a lot of it will have to go beyond so-called developed countries into other countries, which also emit CO2 emissions, and to help them to meet the targets. So the instruments that are available in Europe, such as EIB or other large financial institutions, basically they should be somehow be made available for DSOs outside the key markets, and basically those that are integrated or are on the way of integration into the European markets, such as Ukraine. So yeah, so to summarize, basically stable regulation, educated investment directions, and basically financing instruments that are already available in other parts of the world. So.
Thank you very much. I think you touch a very important aspect, stable regulation and also clear regulation and maybe also innovative regulation in order to allow the innovation. So this is important. Maybe in the second round, I will ask you if you are already facing some bad effect of the extreme weather, because this is also a reason for increased investment in your system, to increase resiliency, to keep the light on even in the worst condition. Now let's move on to Christian Buchel. That is a privileged view from talking to all DSOs or most of the DSO in Europe. So you know we have a green evolution of the system in front of us. The role of DSO is extremely important in my view, but also this role could change over the time. Can you explain us how all DSO will play their role in this transition, please?
Thank you very much, Luciano. Great pleasure to be here. Yes, to precise, you mentioned it, yes, EDSO, we gather the main DSOs all over Europe, from Ireland to Greece, ETNO, from ESO in Lithuania to Portugal, including our friends from Ukraine. Ivan, the CEO of DTEC, is member of our board. We're very happy, yes, because Europe, you have to see this as a broad aspect. Yes, to invest, you need to have investors, yes, and I guess, Philippe, you will come on this topic. I'm very eager to hear what you say about this. But I start with two questions. The first one may be a little bit provocative. In people mind, I mean, not we're here around this room or through video, but in people mind, do we belong to the one of the trendiest sector in the world? You think yes? You think no?
I think energy now is a very fashionable, very fancy now.
I think not yet.
Not yet? Not yet,
because the answer, if you ask around, I mean really in the people mind, yes, the answer is probably yes, Disney is very tremendous. Maybe Apple, maybe, I don't know, people who like cars, maybe Porsche in Germany. And why? The question is why? Because they embody somewhere the people's dreams, yes, and customer expectation. Second question, less provocative. Do we belong to one of the most challenging industry in the world? And here, my answer, I think, is very clear, and I guess we share the answer. The answer is definitely yes, is a statement. Yes, yes, we do. We belong to the industry, I think, which have to challenge really our business model and all we are doing. And why? Because we have to make this dream, the green world, with neutrality, carbon neutrality, is not only a dream, it has to become a necessity for ourselves, our children. And we as DSOs, I think it's our duty, we help to do this, yes? And how we make this happen? Three answers seen from our experience as DSOs. I'm also a member of the board of Enedis in France. The first answer is by investing massively into electricity grid. Invest massively. You mentioned some figures, yes, from the International Energy Agency. According to them, it has been said yesterday, invest €1 in renewables calls for €1 investment in grid. €1 in renewables, €1 in grid. At the EU level, we have another study, yes, a very concrete study, because we started more from, would say, business cases from Spain, from France, from Germany, etc. And we give this study to the Commission. We say we do need 400 billion euros into the grid by 2030. This enormous, yes. And what investment I'm talking about? Exactly what you said. Yes, investments to connect renewables. Yes, it's clear.
Okay.
Investment to improve, and you are totally right. Investment to improve resilience against extreme climate events we will have to face. Global warming is not only a buzzword, it's reality, and all our DSOs unfortunately have to handle this and tackle this. Investment in IT, investment in cybersecurity, investment to support new uses of electricity. You mentioned electromobility, local communities, etc. Transformation possible is by the cross-sector cooperation. We're here electricity and gas, but not only electricity and gas. We do need all the people here in this room, yes, and all the people with their exhibition outside this room. Cooperation is key. And the third is innovation. Flexibility as an example. Flexibility is not seen from ITSO, yes, in the real life. It's not a theoretical innovation or a technical notion or even a financial product. Flexibility is an attitude able to detect how we can invest a little bit less, how we can create value for us customer and territories. And then the third one is the high. We have to. It has been said, but for gas, with data, we have to give power to data in the entire value chain, not only for our value chain, in the entire value chain, starting from customer, producers, suppliers, of course, territories and cities, where at the end, where happened the transformation? The transformation happened in the territories and in the cities. It's key for a city which want to transform their city in the smart cities or whatever the name is, to can use and to access to the data of the DSOs. So for all these reasons, the DSO industry in Europe, we push, we help, we ask the policymakers, the European Commission, the ACER, the regulators, etc., to set up the appropriate, not only stable, I think the appropriate regulation framework we do need. It was a great step, and we are very happy with this, that we have created the so-called EU DSO entity for electricity, which set up standards for not only for Europe, but for the world. Yes, we have a mission in the world, we think, at least in our association. And so pushing this evolution of the framework is key. And to conclude, I think it's very important to say only one word about people. Because we as we are companies, yes, within EDSO, we are aware that, okay, we do need huge investments, cross-sectorial cooperation, disruptive innovation, data empowerment. All this is true. But all this is only possible if we have the talents. I was very happy and visit, please, the project, the European project around the European exhibition here. We do need the talents, and talents is a battle and competition in the world, yes, between Apple, I mentioned, and the other companies. And without talents, we cannot transform our companies. So talents help us to transform a necessity to a dream and meet industry needs and social expectation. This is our view within EDSO.
Thank you very much, Christian. I think you touch a very important issue about continued effort in digitalization, managing data, capacity building. The new generation of electrical engineering must be acquainted with this digital world. Then you also explain us, in your view, which are the investment to be target what? Integration of renewable. The grid is now stretched to the limit. If you invest in renewable, you also have to invest in the infrastructure. If not, this cannot be fitting. And then increasing dramatic event, so you need to reinforce your system in order to withstand extreme cold, extreme or warm weather, depending on the situation. Thank you so much. So let's move to Philippe. We were discussing before which investments are needed to facilitate, to promote the energy transition. Now I ask you the opposite. What the energy transition is implying in terms of impact on the grid, on the system? You just released some important document related to a journey of digitalization in the grid. I read it, part of it is very interesting. So which are the technology, which are the role and the impact of this technology on the transformation on the system? Please.
Thank you. First of all, I'm very pleased to be here and to discuss with the talented panelists. I will not come back on the triggers for change because many of us have already stated this. The magnitude of the transformation is very large. We have brought figures like 400 billions a year per year, which is the actual level of investment in renewables. 300 billions a year in renewables, one per year. Only on electric grids. If we add gas grids, hydrogen grids that will be brought, and water grids, and so on and so forth, it will be far more. So, the systems, the electric systems and the energy system will not be the same anymore. We are coming from grid, transporting and distributing energy from centralized generation assets to a two-way flow grid where the distributed energy resources are connected mostly to the distribution grids, electric and gas grids. So this is a new architecture, a new paradigm. One. Secondly, we are speaking digital grid since 20 years, and we have already launched and executed thousands of experimentation in the world. Thousands. And we have learned a lot. And in the same time, technologies have matured. Digital technology, but also sector technologies. Renewables were not the same 20 years ago. So now we are moving at scale. Digital grid. This is a very important question. And this is a journey of 10 to 15 years for the large operators. Probably the tier 2 or tier 3 operators have only to change some things, but this is a very long and costly journey. When we see the investments that have been announced by all the players, and some of them are here on stage, we are speaking of billion euros for each operator every year during 10 years. Dozens of billions. So what to make from this money? Where to start? There is no single answer on that because it depends on your local situation. Is your grid aged 30, 40, 50 years old in some geographies, or is it more modern? Do you have bottlenecks in the grid? What is the resiliency issue? And very important to see the Californian example. I will not go back to the Texas example, which is very specific. On California, they have stated that they will be carbon neutral by 2045. And that will be 100% renewables. But few months back, they have announced that they will keep schedulable generation because they are not able to manage the ramp up of generation in the evening when the sun is not shining anymore, and the bottlenecks of the grid. So they will keep schedulable generation. So 100% renewables is possible, but it could be a fantasy also, a fantasy or a political decision. Of course, we need to decarbonize the planet. This is not a question. But managing the electric systems and the gas systems with 100% of renewables is a real challenge, and it's a costly challenge. And we need to make the energy transition affordable. So, where to start? We have brought with, along with Schneider Electric, a framework. The first building block is generally smart metering and leveraging data out of the smart metering, which is very important. Some have achieved this transformation, some have not started at all. Then you have to instrument the network to put sensors, actuators, and computation capabilities on the transformers, whatever the commodity is, electricity, gas, hydrogen. Then you have, in parallel, it's not you have to renew your grid operations, control rooms of the future. Some have already very modern control rooms, some not. Then you have to see how the asset management will evolve. Asset investment planning, grid planning, building new lines, and so on and so forth. Of course, at any time you have to take the value out of the data, and for that to bring a data foundation. And finally, perhaps in 10 to 20 years, we will be able to have digital twins also in place, and everything being cyber secured, of course, and in the cloud. To ease this transformation. So there is no single journey. Our recommendation is to start from your situation, to define a strategy, and to go step by step. Every 2 years, you should provide a decision file to your share and stakeholders, and notably to the regulation body. And you should progress step by step, starting by one of these building blocks and at the end achieving the full transformation. And in the same time, 10 to 15 years is a very long journey. The technology will mature, and some technologies that are not matured anymore today. Let me give you an example. Tiny machine learning, meaning bringing artificial intelligence on sensors, not on computation capabilities connected to the grid. This is not available today, but many experimentations say that in 5 to 10 years, it could be available. So you should monitor this. So any steps, 1, 2 years, you have to demonstrate benefits. Benefits are not only financial benefits, it's also benefits for your stakeholders, and operational benefits. And you will have to revise your journey and your strategy to end up with this. So, big challenge for all of us, but also big opportunities to bring to our stakeholders and to the planet.
Excellent. So you are suggesting a step-by-step approach, taking into account for breakthrough technology that can be implemented in your strategy in order to have even a better result. And then I got another important input that usually we underline very much, that challenges are global, so everybody is more or less facing the same challenges, but the solution are very much depending on the local condition, your energy mix, your weather condition, your topology. So this is important. So investment will change according to your real needs. Thank you so much. Let's move to Nicolas. I wanted to ask you something. I remember that a few years ago we were saying no more investment in steel and copper. We need to digitalize the system, not such an investment. So I think it's important to discuss with you how much is good to invest, how much is to use at best your asset in order not to burden the final customer with an excessive cost of this investment. And at the same time, we were mentioning that investment are needed for resiliency, for integrated renewal, but also for keeping this stable system after having such a massive integration renewal. When you have an inverter-based system, you need to invest on what? Please tell us, let us know.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for the invitation and great to be here. Hi, everyone. I don't know if I should thank you for those questions because they're probably way above my pay grade. But first thing, and I think you're spot on, and Philippe touched upon it, and Christian also. If we only see energy transition as an issue of fighting against climate change, I think we're just going right against the wall, head on. I think it is a matter of fighting climate change and a matter of social cohesion. Because when you look at the magnitude of the investments that we're talking about, exactly as you said, Luciano, this will translate at some point into competitiveness of our industries. It will translate at some point into the cost for the final customer. And of course, we can quote the yellow vest and whatever, but this is just an epiphenomena. The real issue is that we are facing the most, I think, mind-blowing industrial challenge of modern times to completely change the system. But in the meantime, and I really like your first question, if you ask someone about electricity or gas or whatever, what do they want? And what do we want as customer? You want to push on your switch and have your light turn on. You want to turn on your gas oven, and you want to be able to cook your meal. And I don't think people realize what this involves, from wellhead to distribution, from power production to everything that is being exposed here is actually a part of that ecosystem. And so I think there is a major issue when we talk about those massive investments. How do we make sure that this remains affordable? And it probably translates into another topic, in my view, is that when we talk about energy transition, we should really focus on the transition. And I think those investments, they must be sequenced. And if all of a sudden we say, oh, okay, to get to that 2050 target, and I think that this was one of the main outcomes of COP26, is to say, okay, let's get to that 2030 target first. If we only focus on the 2050 target, the risk is either that we go too slow or that we overwhelm people with what needs to be done. And I'm going to take an example of gas, and I know that I was a fairly early investor in renewables in the early 2000s with NG at the time. But I don't see how you will reduce emissions in the next 10 years without having gas in the mix. I just don't see it from a pure cost perspective, because, and I think this is one of the main outcomes that that was shown in the reports from RTE and the International Energy Agency, or from also the Californian experience, is that actually if you only look at LCOE, so levelized cost of energy, to think of how you organize your system, I think, again, we're dead. The real issue is the system cost. And the system cost is nothing comparable with only producing energy. And so we really need to look into how do we set ourselves on the Paris trajectory for the next 10 years, while at the same time ensuring that people are on board. And we will not make this energy transition if people start to think that they're just taking the hit. And just one last message on this. There's a very interesting study by Professor Shafir at Harvard, say mental bandwidth. If you are caught up in day-to-day financial stress, whatever stress it is, you are not looking at the big picture, and this is normal. You can't ask someone who's struggling to make ends meet to say, hey, you know what, by 2050, think of how your kids are going to act.
Today, I need a solution now, not in 2050.
Exactly. And so what I think it means also for grid operators is not only how do you invest, how do you not invest? And this probably translates into regulation. How is regulation incentivizing for deferring or reducing investments? How do you structure the market design so you can invest in maybe sometimes more granular investments, which are precisely a transition with, I don't know, zonal or nodal pricing, etc., to give the right incentives on the node? But I think if we only stack up investments, we will have a backlash from a social perspective.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, all the investments will be, and in the end, paid by the taxpayer. So we need to be careful and to plan in advance which are the most demanding investment, which need to be made first. I think it's okay. Thanks so much. Also for bringing us back to the importance of the citizen, in being aware about what is needed, but it need to be planned in advance with a certain reasonable way. Thank you so much. I know that Viviana is going to catch a train, so she needs to jump out of the panel at very end. So before you leave, I think you agree that the grid is really the backbone of the green energy transition. So I think there are some actions, some initiatives, something that we have to take now. Can you just tell us from your point of view, from Enel point of view, which are the three main priority we need to focus on in the next coming years? That means now.
First of all, Luciano, thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to catch methane and coming back to my family. I think that something has been told, and the main point is about cooperation. That is cooperation in the sector and cooperation with the other stakeholders. Why that? Because the cooperation is the real opportunity, and we do not do in the extensive way we should do to create the capability of having this scaling up, this sharing of best practice, so that also on the economic sides we can be more affordable and more sustainable. Because also if we think that a second important thing is innovation, when we share this capability all together of doing innovation, and we are lucky, we are in the end in a regulated sector, we can do that more than in other sector. If we refer to network operator, also gas network operator, and we can share this possibility, and we can do innovation and also bring on board other place of the world where this is not so ready to do, but probably with a leapfrog, because with innovation and you can have also leapfrog. And the third point is about flexibility in the meaning of and having flexible solution on both sides, to bring aboard all these flexible resources, but also to bring aboard our capability to be flexible to respond to that.
Very good, Viviana. Did you get any important input from the panelists that you want to react on, or we move on with the other? Did you get any interesting topic to elaborate a little bit from your side?
No, probably the point that was mentioned on the affordability, I think is key, but it's something always to have on mind, to define the priority, because the magnitude of things we have to do is incredible, and to find the best way to do, and to measure it with a cost-benefit analysis that always give us the real priority. It's not just the costs, economic costs, but it's including sustainable part of the effect of these investments, and to measure that. And this is giving the right priority, this type of approach.
And I think that this situation could be even more difficult for a company like Enel that is in Europe, but is also in South America and maybe other place. So priority investment is also quite different country you are managing the system. So, okay, let's move back to the gas. I was at COP26. I was very much excited about energy being on top of the agenda, being discussed by all members, and I don't know why, but hydrogen was always mentioned. Hydrogen. Like, is hydrogen is solving the situation now? I don't think so. But of course, it's something that you have to plan now in order to have a solution in 10 years, in 5 years, I don't know. So can you just tell me from a gas distribution company what hydrogen can be for you in the near future? And then to Italgas, of course. Lady first.
Okay. So hydrogen, yes, it's
it's a big topic.
It's a big topic, and we consider it at GRDF as a main energy vector. We have to consider. We have a roadmap. We have studied how to shift from fossil gas today to 100% renewable gas, and hydrogen has a huge part in it. We think that 70% will be from biomethane for us, and 30% of the gas demand in France could be covered by hydrogen. So today for GRDF we have research development programs, and we explore hydrogen through 3 ways. First ways, quite promising for us, is synthetic methane produced by methanation. We think that it's a very promising future, because as for biomethane, it will enable to produce synthetic methane that could be injected into the grids without any adaptation on the grids and on end users' appliance, which is very important, because many costs can originate from the shift necessary within households to be compatible for hydrogen consumption. So we believe in synthetic methane by methanation, and coupled with biomethane plants, we think it can double the production of biomass and biomethane, and we know that it will reduce the carbon dioxide emission of the process of biomethane. So there are many-fold positive externalities through synthetic methane. It's quite technologically available quickly, and we have forecast, we bring support to 5 projects in France, and we have first quite positive return of experience, and we are beginning to speak with our government to have more support to test more, and we have also cooperation with other European DSO on that. Then, so this is the first part, synthetic methane by methanation, which will rely on the existing grid, and that's a very good point on the hydrogen economy, because it wouldn't require investment. The second part is blending. We have tested it in France, in Dunkirk. We have blended up to 20% of hydrogen in our own networks, and we have delivered energy to households, existing households, new buildings. It worked, but it's not for us satisfactory, and we have to do more research and development, especially on membrane, because they could allow us to deliver not only methane at the end, but also pure hydrogen, which could be very interesting, but technology are not yet mature. And the third way is we are exploring dedicated distribution network, and we have assessed that we could we have a map of a distribution grid that could have technically and economically that could be support close to the backbone set up by transmission networks.
Okay, thank you. So research innovation is needed. So you are relying on
research
that.
and development. And
You are also pushing to the limit for 5%, 10%, now 20% maybe could be a viable solution in blending. So this is interesting. What is happening in Italy? What do you believe about green hydrogen? Because you know Europe is pushing more for green hydrogen prepared by renewables. What is your impression?
We strongly believe that green hydrogen is a viable option to decarbonize the economy and leveraging the existing gas infrastructure, but not earlier than 10 years from now.
I wanted to ask you of a timeline.
That is our expectation, because we believe that there are still a couple of barriers, economical barriers on the supply side. First of all, in order to produce green hydrogen, you need affordable, low-price electricity, renewable electricity, and the average price as of today, apart from the crisis of prices, is not so low to grant the production of green hydrogen at an affordable cost compared to for example, gray hydrogen or blue hydrogen. So first of all, we have to foster the development of new renewable plants. That is the first step in order to have affordable green hydrogen, and we need time to do so, unfortunately. Secondly, we still have a high cost on the equipment, the main equipment, the electrolyzers. We have various technologies there, but it's a nice equipment as of today. So we have to develop an economy of scale. In order to do so, maybe we have to introduce some subsidies or some feed-in tariffs or something in order to speed up the process. This from the supply side. Then when we examine downstream, I don't believe we have so many bottlenecks. Now, I tell you a secret here, but please
we don't tell anybody.
Anybody, yes. Until 1990, Italgas still used to distribute town gas, which was manufactured starting from coal. And town gas, which I remember I used, for example, in Rome until the 80s, had a content of up to 30% of hydrogen, 20 to 30. So there was no technological issue there. So it is something that we can do. We are carrying out a comprehensive assessment of our network in Italgas. This is proving that the network, the pipes are suitable. The polyethylene and the steel pipes that we use are suitable for double-digit blending, up to 100% hydrogen. We have some bottlenecks here and there in the plants, but it's something, gaskets, valves, which can be replaced. We still don't have a proven technology for metering, but Italgas, and this is a real announcement I do today, is launching a brand new smart meter, which will be suitable for metering, for measuring also blends with hydrogen. So all in all, we believe in this option, not for today, but again, if you want to, as a DSO, if you want to face this opportunity and not be swept away, you have to start working now. That's why we have decided to build a power-to-gas plant in Sardinia, which will be completed by 2023 in order to produce real green hydrogen, blend it with natural gas, and so deliver these blends to the first residential community in Italy, which will be fed with a blending. That just to prove as a technological showcase that we can do that.
Thank you very much for sharing with us this nice information. I think you know that the National Energy and Climate Plan for Italy is foreseeing a huge amount of increase of renewable, up to 70 gigawatt. So this will create some overgeneration from renewables that is exactly in line with what you said. The cost of energy will be low enough to allow for the generation side to be viable in terms of economical side. We as RSC, we are working to help in making the strategy for hydrogen for Italy. So we will take all this input in our mind. Thank you so much. We have 8-9 minutes left. Maybe I would like to concentrate a little bit more on resiliency. So which are the investments that you believe will be needed in the near future just to face what we are already experiencing today with the extreme cold weather and maybe something that is affecting your network in Ukraine? What could be maybe your solution? We have experienced, and nobody wanted to mention Texas, but Texas blackout is a clear example. At that time, the system, gas and network and the electricity network were not winterized to be ready to support not 1 day, not 3 days, maybe 1 week of very cold weather. So everything broke, valves and other. And so this was the initial part of a blackout. So which is the investment related to resiliency of the system?
Yeah, so our experience is similar as probably everywhere else. So there is an increasing number of outages due to bad weather conditions. It varies from region to region, but generally speaking, those regions that are actually located or where we operate grids in highly forested areas, for example, are even more exposed to adverse weather conditions. So besides the typical and the traditional means to to counter such incidents, so cabling and things like that, which are quite expensive, but don't necessarily bring the required effect. There are other means that we start employing. So, for example, scanning our grids and actually trying to predict which parts of our grids would be most exposed to adverse weather conditions. This particularly is applicable in, as I mentioned, in highly forested areas and similar places. Then the other part, which is quite important, is how fast do we react if something happens, right? So this goes back to automation, digitalization tools, which allow, first of all, to mobilize our teams in a fast way. And the second part, or prior to that, is of course localization of the incident. And there again, we can apply some tools which have become, well, relatively recently available, but it's still not something of a complete novelty. So even the deployment of smart grids, for example, helps us to localize the exact location which customers have been damaged. The same for ADMS and other basic technologies which are actually available there. So what is important is basically also, again, I will go back to stability and incentivizing regulation. So basically an educated regulatory environment. So basically being able to prove to the regulator that other means which are not so traditional can help to achieve good results. So
Thank you so much. So maybe the last topic could be this energy transition will not come by itself. We need a technology, we need a right approach. Can you just elaborate, Philip, Christian and Nicola, which is the main innovation we need and what we have to focus on in the coming years in order to allow this transformation to be possible? Philip.
I will start with the approach again. So you need to be very clear on where you will invest,
Where?
in which topics, in which domains, which technology you will leverage, and how you will follow up the disruption that are coming with new technologies. This is also very important to get the appropriate talents, as mentioned by Christian, and to be in a step-by-step approach. Very important. I am convinced that the approach for gas and electricity are almost the same.
Quite similar, yes.
Quite similar. I have tested the electricity approach that we have developed with gas operators, and it works. Of course, the triggers are not the same for the transformation, and the topics when we are coming on network instrumentation, we are not speaking exactly on the same.
No,
but this could be the same approach. At the end, you should embark also with an ecosystem.
Yeah.
An ecosystem of partners that are committed to your results. The project is very long and very complex and very costly. So try to make it simple. Not to have multiple players not interconnected that you will have to manage. Embark with an ecosystem with players committed to your results and to your transformation. Don't get only the technology. Technology is of course fundamental, but get also talents, get also the transformation side out of the data. And of course, rely on standards. Always good to say it, even if the standards are not existing today. Create them through association like ETSO. Create the standard, and finally, de-risk, lower the cost of your projects, and get tangible results at any steps.
Very good point. Christian.
Yes, let me just just one mention about climate change events. When you look what happened only this year, yes, we have within the association all over summer. Each week, one of our members had a problem. We had all over summer our colleagues from ETNO, yes, in Greece. Yes, they had fire to handle. We had our colleague from Germany, yes, E.ON, a huge group, E.ON, yes. We helped them as we can. Association is not only set up standards, it's also the real all over the summer. And I think cooperation is an absolute necessity in the coming years. Just to add this.
You also bring us back an important, what is the cost of not investing?
Yeah, it's not only a question of cost. Sorry to interrupt, not only a question of cost. Our colleagues from Belgium, we try to help them because they had floods, yes, as you know, unfortunately with a lot of people who died. They had not the same standards of the transformers. So we in France, we could not help them, unfortunately. So you see, it's really a question of cooperation and standards, etc.
Interoperability.
To come back on your question,
yeah.
I will not answer, sorry, but about what kind of innovation. I was wondering if my first question was provocative enough. I think not, it was not. Because really, in the center, I totally agree what Nicolas said. If we miss to connect the citizen, the territories, the local authorities, nothing will happen. Because suddenly, it can, you mentioned the yellow jackets, yes? We have some experiences about this, yes?
Mindset changing.
Yes, I think really the transformation is huge, but our answer cannot only be technical and engineer answer. We have to bring together the social acceptance, because otherwise we are only engineers and we will, you said, go straight toward the wall. I agree with you.
Very good.
So we're not only technical companies. This is why I mentioned Apple and Porsche and the others. We have to create the dream and bring into this transformation all our stakeholders.
Very good. Cooperation, bringing in the game all the actors, including the final customer and the citizen. Nicolas, I think you have 1 minute and then I will close the session.
Okay, I agree with everything.
No, we need a debate. We need to argue. Why you agree?
No, I fully agree with cooperation in general. Also, what Viviana said. I think if I'm only looking at Europe, interconnection is a key issue. We know that reliability is bigger if your network, if your grid is actually bigger, because just the contingency gets smaller by definition if you have a default on one plant. So I think interconnection is key, but I totally agree that innovation cannot be only either technical nor even market design, etc. We genuinely have to change the mindset. One thing might be we should be thinking, and I think Viviana touched upon it, I think our investment models are largely outdated. And I think Hélène mentioned the point on externalities. I think if we don't change the way we analyze large investment projects without embarking externalities, positive and negative, same thing, we will not achieve this energy transition. One negative is that today we're diverting away from fossil fuel to go into a metal and mining and mineral extracting business. Practically, we're just saying 20 to 40% increase in lithium, cobalt, nickel. I'm not even talking dysprosium, etc. And second, I think we're on positive externalities. We forget that the quality, the reliability of a grid go to some places where you have 10, 12, 80 hours of grid outages per year. The impact, social impact, economic impact is huge. And so we should factor this in on the fact that in Europe particularly, we provide you guys provide, I don't, but you guys provide an extremely reliable power or gas, etc. And this has a value. How do we factor this in our models? I think we should think about it, because right now we're too financial in the way we analyze it, and it's just walks and discounts and blah blah blah, and we totally forget that behind it there is a genuine social and environmental value that we need to factor in.
Thank you very much. It was a long session. I hope it was also interesting. I would like to thank the nice audience for being with us for all this time. I would also to thank the nice and very distinguished panel that animated and discussed this together. Can we give a round of applause to all the panelists, to all of you? And I hope we had a very fruitful discussion for you. And this is the starting. Let's share information. Let's work together.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luciano.